Hello, everybody. It's Heather. Welcome to the Leadership with Heart podcast. Today, I am very excited to have Shawn Lalehzarian on the phone and with me. And he is, somebody was referred to me. I was just saying, I don't usually take a lot of these pitches, but there's one particular company that keeps sending really great people my way. And their story, the story of struggle, the story of diversity, all kinds of things is something that for you, Shawn, is the one that really attracted me to that message. And I knew that my listeners would want to hear from you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Heather. I'm glad to hear that, and it's good to be here.
So tell everybody anywhere where you are right now in your leadership journey.
Well, right now, I'm in the position of CEO and co-founder of TheRedChickz, a Nashville Hot Chicken fast casual restaurant that we recently, about 2 months ago, got into franchising market for this concept. The Red Chickz has been in operation for about 3 years now. I've been in restaurant business for about 22 years. And throughout the years, I started as a dishwasher and spent a good amount of time in the last 22 years in senior management positions, and eventually opened my own restaurant. The first one in 2014. 2 years later, I opened the second one, and in 2018, opened Red Chickz.
Well, this is like a natural question right here is to ask, like, where does your drive to lead come from? Because you go from dishwasher to now having, a couple of your own, having restaurants, the franchise, that whole thing. So where does that come from? Where did that desire to lead come from?
Like I said, I started as a dishwasher because when I moved to United States, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to speak English. So the easiest job to get was a dishwasher because you didn't really have to talk to anyone. It didn't require much of the skills. But the first couple of months that I started working in the restaurant, I really liked the environment and the challenges that on daily basis, not me as a dishwasher, but the management and the owner had to go through and get things fixed and keep up with the ticket time and all that stuff. And all those challenges, solving those problems on daily basis was really interesting for me. It was like that, I think, was the initial drive, that just solving problems. And then when I got to the very first management position as assistant manager, when I started, my GM back then, the second week of training, he was like, if you want to become valuable, you got to learn to solve problems. So once you become a problem solver, then everyone is going to come to you and you can grow really fast. So I started working on that. And at the very stages of my management, I got introduced to Rohn, which I want to say changed my life drastically, not just career-wise, but personal life as well. So Rohn was a really good influence in my life. Because of that, I never really got to attend one of his events. It was too late. But because of him, I attended Tony Robbins' event. I attended UPW and got really hooked. So I started crewing at UPW events, and that brought another whole different drive and perspective into both career and personal life for me, and changed a lot of stuff in my life. And I would say a combination of all that, a lot of books, because I really wanted to grow fast in the corporate world, and I figured the best way to do it is just to educate myself. And I felt like that personal growth would be a great way to push that and make it faster than what it usually takes. So I was the youngest store manager in the company, and then I was the youngest senior manager and area manager. So it was a combination. But to be honest, I feel like the core of all of it, it's really solving problems, and the fact that like Tony always says, like, bring on the challenge. Like, what's the next thing we have to solve? What's the next problem that we have to face? And let me come up with something that can fix that, or at least start the solution process, and then we'll see where we get. So I would say that's where my drive comes from. It's just so eager to solve problems.
I'm wondering if did any of this come from at all, like your background coming from Iran? Like, were your parents kind of that way? I see. So for me, I have an interesting background, and it's kind of filled with a lot of adversity. And so for me, like the adversity and the diversity and the whole funniness of my background and my family really contributes to me being a better listener, a someone who cares deeply about people. But it also has me. I have the ability to kind of to steer around obstacles faster. And the problem solving thing is a natural thing for me because I'm always have a heightened antenna for something that might be adverse in my way. It's a protection mechanism, but it ends up being a superpower. So I'm kind of curious to know with your background if you think any of that just from the beginning stems from that, and then it's that desire to solve problems. Is there any context or texture that you can add for that?
You know, maybe when I was a teenager back in Iran, I moved here when I was 17. So when I was 13, 14, I got involved with a group of students that they were doing events on weekly basis and throwing events and gathered, anywhere from 70, 80 to 100, 150 people every Thursday night. And it was very interesting for me, very quick. They were all older than me. So I was the youngest one, right? They were all college students. I was still like early high school years. And but I really liked the fact that they could gather all these people on weekly basis and how they planned this whole thing in advance. So I got involved with them. I got to, after about 6, 7 months, I got to actually manage and plan events with the help of a couple of other people. And as you can imagine, it's not really easy to host any sort of event or anything in Iran because of the government and everything else. So I had to become creative in that part as to, okay, if you want to do this and we have all these challenges that you cannot do any of these when you host an event. So how can we go around it? And how can we find a solution that we can get what we want, but also be in compliance with everything out there? Maybe that was the start of it, but in a very small scale, nothing that I usually go back to. But maybe that was the start of that feeling of, okay, how can I lead people? How can I get, certain amount of people follow me and do things to achieve a goal that we all have? Maybe that was the start of it.
It's so funny. I said people say when they're on my show, they feel like as a guest, they feel like they leave and they've gone through therapy. So I'm not purposeful in that regard, but people always feel that way because I do like to go deeper because I often find that, well, number one, the stories are so compelling, right? And we learn through stories, and our stories often we tell ourselves things about ourselves that are true and not true, based upon the stories that happen to us and how we perceive those, right? And so sometimes it's just interesting to go deeper and help other people go, oh, like I did that kind of thing too. And I just love people to see themselves in other people's stories. That's how I do. I see myself in people's stories all the time. I learn that way. So that's why I went there with you, Shawn. So
Absolutely.
so
But
I'm
that was a
curious.
very good question, actually. It took me back to those days. And
That's awesome. I love it though. And it connects you to the Tony Robbins and the Jim Rohn crew too, which is kind of cool. All like the events and all of that stuff is kind of cool.
Yes.
So how would the people that now look to you as the leader, how would they describe you as a leader?
Well, I think there are two aspects into this. That's what I think, right? When it comes to company decision, I'm very strategy is very important for me. I got to make sure I have the data before I make the decision. As much information as I can get, and then how would this affect us in 6 months, a year and a half, 3 years? And is that the right decision to make, or should we go a different route? So that's my style in there. But I also, when I go there, the most important thing for me all the time is employees come right up there with the brand. So if I'm looking at, okay, how is this going to affect our brand within the next 6 months, 12 months, or 3 years? how is that going to affect our employees if this decision would affect them at all? And is that a good one or not so much? And now, within the last 9 months, I would say, there is another aspect, that's how is this decision going to affect our franchisees in the future, or even the ones that are coming on board right now and their growth with us. So I take that into consideration all the time, because I've been there myself, right? I've been in every position. I've done dishwashing to being a cook for a couple of years. I've done serving for a couple of years. I know how it feels to be in that position. I know how the miscommunication from the top management can affect the employee, their motivation, their to feel secure in where they're at and feel comfortable and willing. I think all of that throughout the years has helped me to basically put me in, or learn these styles. Right now, the employees that we have in our operation, they've been with us since the beginning. Majority of them, I want to say 80% of our employees have been with us for 7 years now. And
That's impressive
thank
in your industry. Oh yeah.
Right, right. And we take, different measures. It's not just operations. After going to UPW Tony Robbins event, me and my partner, we started doing the basket brigade for Thanksgiving. It's been now, I think, 8, 9 years that we've been doing it. So every year for Thanksgiving, we try to feed. It started with 2 baskets to just feed 2 families the Thanksgiving dinner. Last year, we did 250 families, and we bring our employees, we get our employees involved in these sort of events that we do for the community, for them to, feel, whether it's assembling these baskets or delivering it to the families or handing them off, just getting involved into that aspect of who we are and what we do as well. So it's not all about opening the store, working a shift, and go home till the next day. With a lot of them, we know their families. We hang out with their families, and that we look at the whole thing as a family. And even when we went to expand into franchise world, and one of the questions at the beginning were, how do you want to look at your franchisees, as a family or as a business partner? And we picked family. We want to grow the family. We want this relationship to be as if everyone is in the family. Everyone is to be happy. If one part of this family is not functioning right, then it's going to affect everyone else in that family. So that, I think, I hope, is how they would describe me in my leadership style.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I like the idea of the social responsibility and the things that you do in the community. That connection is so important, and you listening to them too, to figure out what they want to be doing, to feel like the work is more meaningful. I think the organizations, the leaders that figure that out, that like mark the spot that says, like, this is what makes my team feel like work is more meaningful. I've kind of gathered these are the 3 things, and they do that more consistently, then they, just more likely to keep in their best people. So especially right now, as we think about the Great Resignation and people leaving, and trying to figure out what's what, and sometimes we're able to meet their needs and sometimes we're not. Someone said this to me just yesterday on a call. She said the whole point of being kind of a great workplace these days is not necessarily to keep your people super long time. It is to make it where it pulls at their heartstrings before they make a decision to leave, because they are so connected to what you're doing, connected to you as a leader, feel like they're cared for there. And so that is the purpose of it. And I do believe that, given that sometimes people's journey or vision of themselves changes, and sometimes you can meet the need and sometimes you cannot. It just depends on what it is. And so I appreciate your, again, flexibility to be thinking about how you're helping them feel like their work is meaningful outside of work, not just the work itself, but like as a person, whole person, what would they want? So that's good
Absolutely.
stuff.
And I feel like the fact that all that comes in genuinely is not that we're just trying to act certain way. It really is how we feel. How can we make them grow? How can we make them get to the next level? Not just work-wise and career-wise, but in personal life. what's one book that I think would help them, or the small decisions that we make before we actually put them into effect, just going back to them if it's affecting back of the house and just ask them, hey, this is what we want to do. What do you think? Do you do you see any challenges that we don't see? And just getting their input so they feel like they're actually part of this holding rather than just delivering the message and say, as of tomorrow, this is how we're going to do things. I think that definitely makes a difference in how they feel in the work environment.
I love that so much. So for those who are listening who are like, yeah, but I can see why Shawn's on here. I could, yeah, good connection. I have a really good gut for this. I see this story and I'm like, I bet you that's a good one. Here's a moment in time now where we talk about the time in your life or the time in your leadership journey where you felt like you weren't the best version of you. Maybe you just didn't show up this way, where you just naturally cared, or you really were focused on trying to grow and help others, advance others, their needs, lift them up. When was that time? Can you share a story with us when maybe you weren't the best leader, you weren't the leader with heart, and what did you do to come out of that?
Absolutely. As what I said, when I used to work at corporate, I had a really good growth, and I felt like, okay, I've learned it all, and I know how things work and how I can put pieces together. And then I opened my first restaurant, and I feel like the very first 6 months, 4 to 6 months of that journey, I was really not the best leader, because I was micromanaging everything. That somehow translated when I left the corporate and I started my own business. I felt like I have to be there for every aspect of little things, to make sure that it's happening right? So I ended up working about 18 hours a day, for about 4 to 6 months. I didn't take a day off. I wanted to be there every day. Now I know, now that I look back, I know that, okay, you start a business, you want to be there, you want to make sure everything goes well. But the extreme that I was taking it to micromanaging and being in the kitchen and just standing there and watching employees for 3 hours to make sure they're doing everything right every single day, it was just a little too much. So uh, I was not really leading. I was just looking for problems. I was looking just to point out, to say, oh, that you didn't do that right, you didn't do this right. And I would step in and try to do it myself. Okay, I'll do this myself to make sure everything is going to come out right. And after 4 to 6 months, the very first thing was, I felt like if I continue like that, I'm not going to last a year and I'm probably going to end up in a hospital. So that was the first thing, that the physical toll that was taking off of me. And then when I stepped back because of that, I could see that that was not me. That was not me back in corporate. And what changed that? And just that step back and looking at everything and just feeling that, okay, let's just give them the piece. Let's just teach them what needs to be done and let them deliver. And then if they don't, then I can step in and say, okay, guys, so this is what it went wrong. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again, instead of being there every second and trying to fix things and making them nervous and making them not trust me. And that feeling of, oh, so he doesn't trust us to just leave us for 30 minutes, he has to be there all the time. So that very first 4 to 6 months, I feel like I was not really leading. I don't even know what I was doing in that aspect. It was too much of trying to micromanage every single thing. And I think that was definitely one of the times that I failed to be a good leader.
It's interesting. So in this book, this is my latest book called The Art of Carrying Leadership. And in it, I talk a lot. First, it starts with self-leadership. So this concept of like self-awareness for you of, uh-oh, yeah, I'm overdoing it. Number one, it's not good for me. I'm not healthy from a self-care perspective. Then it's obviously I'm micromanaging them. So I'm not really empowering them to be their best, to even help drive this business forward, to make us successful. So there's that social awareness perspective. So the inside, the outside. And how could you even turn into the leader you are today until you got to that point? I always tell people, when we think about like challenges, obstacles, tough times, like, people want to be resilient. People want to be known as tough. People want to be, but they have to be willing to hit the wall first. Right. And you, in that case, that first 6 months is like I'm, like I said, I can't get through another year of this. I'm hitting the wall. And then it was like, all of a sudden there was like the enlightened moment. Now, do you feel like you're somebody who here and there, when you get really stressed, you're on a deadline, even with what's going on now, with growing the franchise and all that stuff, do you feel like you kind of revert a little bit back and you have to find yourself pushing yourself back out of the micromanagement stage? Because some people who naturally do it, they work hard to get out of it, and then they kind of feel themselves do this oscillation thing. Do you feel like you ever do that?
A good point, actually. I learned to have reminders for myself, right? So I'm not at my desk right now, but if I was, I could show you. I have a little, uh,
Like notes?
yeah, not notes, but I have a reminder. It's a little cartoon character that I have on my desk, with a hammer in his hand. And every time I look at it, it reminds me to not go there. So when I started this whole process, I actually, from the very beginning, I made it very clear. I was like, listen, guys, I can't do everything by myself. So from this very beginning, I got to make sure that this is all I can do. And then I want you to do this, and I want you to take care of that, and just report to me on daily or weekly basis as is needed. Or if there's any challenges that I need to know or step in, just let me know. But other than that, just take over the whole thing and just let me know how things go. But I have, that's not the only reminder I have on my desk. Actually, I have like 5 different characters on my desk to remind me of different things, of not to go there or to go there, you know?
Oh, I love the visual. I usually will tell, listen, I have a few people that I coach. I'm not a coach, but I coach just a few of my clients. Let's just put it that way. And so what I'll tell them, there's one that was like, assume positive intent. So she had this acronym, it was like API, and she'd put it on in her bathroom. She'd put it on her desk. And so it was like API everywhere. So she knew, like, when she was getting irritated by somebody or assuming they weren't, having the good intent, she would just look at the API and be like, okay, like Heather told me, like, assume positive intent, So I love like the visual of the character, like somebody with hair on fire, like calm the heck down, or the
Right.
hammer, like don't be a micromanager. So I love that so much. I might have to steal that from you, and I'll give you credit. Don't worry.
Actually, it works great. And I learned that from the CEO of Dell, and also Tony Robbins. When he's on stage, there's a red chair on stage, and he never sits on that chair, but it's there to remind him to slow down and not to speak too fast. So I learned to have those sort of reminders when I can.
I love that. That's brilliant. Okay, so now it's your turn to turn the tables and ask me a question as the host. You've now kind of become the host and ask me anything you'd like, knowing that I'm in the leadership, employee loyalty, engagement, resilience space. Anything you want to ask me?
Yes, I actually had a couple of questions for you. So one was, what does your daily routine look like?
I get up. I try to get a good sleep. So I get up around 6 o'clock, and go right down to my basement where I have a little workout area. I work out for about up to 45 minutes, about max. Then I'm either going straight to take a kid to school, or I'm preparing a particular type of breakfast. I have the same breakfast every day. I'm one of those people. Then I have my coffee, and then again, usually I'm having to still take a kid. Sometimes my husband and I are kind of flopping on that. Then I'm just getting ready and getting right off to the different calls and things I have. And then I'm ending the day with usually some more schlepping of kids. I have 4 kids. So one of them is in college and the other 3 boys are still here. One's driving, and there's still a couple that I have to kind of go back and forth on. And then it's just, again, even after hours, there may be some emails, but I'm trying to take some time with the kids in the evening. So it's spending time with them, trying to make sure I'm cooking, not every single time, but usually a few days a week. And that's kind of how the day runs for me. And I'm on calls. I'm a keynote speaker. So when I'm not traveling, then I'm here and I'm on calls all day. If I'm traveling, then it's airports a lot. So it just depends on what I have going on. Like, I'm a consultant and speaker, trainer, and of course, podcast host. I have a lot of dang hats. I tell you that for sure. I wear a lot of hats. I'm even an adjunct professor online. So I'm grading papers on certain days. And it's just kind of crazy, but it's fun.
I bet. And another question I had was, so in the position that I am as a leader, what would be the 3 best books that you would suggest for me to read?
Well, you know, I'm going to give you mine. That's for sure, because I want to spread and evangelize caring leadership all over the dang world. So the art of caring leadership is one. Another one that I absolutely love, and she is a friend of mine, but it's not for that. I read this book from corner to corner, and I'll give you another one that's like that too. That's from somebody else I know, but this one is called Our Stories Don't Define Us. Let me give you the exact title. Hold on, Our Stories, because I always mess it up. Your stories don't define you, how you tell them will. And Sarah Elkins wrote that. She's a friend of mine, but I just, oh my gosh, it was brilliant. It just helps you realize. Remember, I talked about earlier. That's why I said that, because I've always been a storyteller, but there was an awakening about the stories I had been telling myself, and some of them I had dealt with well, and some of them I hadn't dealt with well, and I had figuring out which ones were baggage and which ones were actually helping me move forward. So that was a good one. And then the last one is somebody I interviewed. He's not necessarily a friend, but I interviewed him, and it's another book that I read cover to cover, and like that was probably within 2 days. And I don't usually do that because I don't have a lot of time. But let me just see. The name of his book was. Let me actually just go straight to his profile. His name is Matt Sweetwood, and his book was. Wait, where is it? Come on. Oh, and his book is called Leader of the Pack: How a Single Dad of 5 Led His Kids, His Business, and Himself from Disaster to Success. I think that's a good book. I know you will love that one because you love Tony Robbins. So it kind of has some of that feel, but it's like the overcoming adversity and the need to kind of go past that and really succeed in life. And then of course with him, he brought 5 kids with him after he left an abusive marriage. So his wife was abusive. So yeah, so those 3 I would say would be really good ones to read.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for asking me that. You're the first to ask that. And, I love this part of it because it's like, ask me whenever and I have to do it. I don't have any time to prepare. You just ask me whatever it is and you're getting me. The good thing about me and the bad thing about me is that who you see here is who you see always. So, it is what it is. There's just not a lot of filter, not a lot of anything. That's just who I am. But this is awesome. Now, so for those who are listening right now, who might be at an interesting crossroads in leadership journey, or might have a struggle, or might need some extra motivation, or just looking for that extra oomph to get them through the remaining of the year, what might be a couple pearls of wisdom you'd leave them with?
For myself, I'm just going to share what I have experienced and what has worked for me, right? I would say number 1 is just keep showing up. Just keep showing up, because I've learned that if you just keep showing up, you'll probably win 95% of the time, because a lot of people just don't show up. And if you keep showing up, that will work. Whether it's keep showing up for yourself or for people you love or for your employees or whatever it is that pulls you, just keep showing up. And the second one I would say is if you're struggling, just step back and look at the whole thing and see what it is that you're not aware of. Because I feel like for me, the very first thing that I learned with Jim Rohn, the first influence was that awareness. Just becoming aware that what I was doing was not working or was not right or it was not serving me. If there's no awareness, there's no change coming, there's no fixing, there's no trying to become better or growth, because if you don't know, you don't know, right? I feel like the awareness is 95% of the process of the change and growth. Once you become aware, then it's very easy to pinpoint and figure out how you can change things or fix things if there's a need for it. But if you're not aware, then you'll always just get stuck there. So those 2 has worked for me. So that's what I would share with leaders.
Awesome. Well, and that's awesome. So being present and being aware, and I would say those are huge as well. I appreciate you sharing those pearls, Shawn. And for those who are listening, if you found this interview to be really enlightening, do share it far and wide. You know, I ask this each time, and that is because we want to continue to get the word out about this and teach and train other people. And you have a hand in that. And don't also forget to write a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you might be listening, because that's where it moves us up the algorithm. More and more people are listening. It helps a lot. I do thank you for your support in that. And Shawn, this has been a real pleasure. I'm so glad to have had you on here.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for the time.
And thanks everybody for listening to Leadership Heart Podcast. Be well.